Welcome, welcome. Let's watch some stuff. This one is called Lisbon, Everything You Must Know Before Visiting. So, I lived there for 15 years, and so I should know a thing or two about the city, right? Sometimes I look at these videos because I'm curious to see like other people's perspectives coming from outside but living there for quite some time. And you get to know a little bit about Lisbon as well. All right, this is Lisbon, Everything You Must Know Before Visiting from Dave in Portugal. Not to be confused with Dave from Portugal, right? This is Dave from Portugal. That one is the Dave in Portugal. This is Dave from Portugal in London. That's Dave in Portugal, but not from Portugal. All right. How's the Oh, I miss this place. Sometimes.
Lisbon, Lisboa. Colorful, organized chaos. A masterful combination of old versus new.
It's just old.
A city that is older than Rome. Lisbon is at the apex of a massive transition, from a once urban dystopia to a new renaissance transforming it into an international hub.
This looks like an ad. Anyway, did you guys know that Lisbon, as a settlement, is older than Rome? It was not called Lisbon, right? It acquired the name later on. But it is older than Rome, as a settlement.
This is not your typical on-the-surface YouTube video about a weekend in Lisbon.
No?
This is a deep dive into the authentic Lisboa.
Okay.
I want you to feel like you are right here in the city with me, and
I'm
my
with
goal
you.
is to prepare you so you don't look like another lost tourist looking for a Starbucks. In Lisbon, there is no shortage of incredible street art. This is one of my favorite artists, Adfuel.
That's true. And it has been... We've been having more and more exposure to this kind of stuff. Cordoaria Nacional is like a museum, basically. It's like a showroom where there's multiple exhibits and stuff like that. But recently, in the last couple of years, we've been having more and more like street artists. Specifically, people doing things with like recycled materials, like sculptures and things like that. I bet he's gonna talk about them.
A lot of his murals create the illusion that a layer of the building is being ripped away, and beneath lies the colorful tiles that Portugal is so famous for. Up until the 17th century, the city had a tradition of completely white buildings. But after the devastating earthquake of 1755 that nearly leveled the entire city,
the downfall of the Portuguese Empire, really.
And decorative tiles to the exterior walls and pavements. This, over time, led to welcoming street art that now covers many of the buildings all over Lisbon.
Yeah. By the way, the earthquake was pretty devastating. It turns out that we are near one of the faults, like one of the tectonic plates, and it doesn't happen often, but when it happens, it's pretty destructive. And like the Portuguese Empire itself was everywhere. A bit like the Brits, right? We had a lot of trades. We had the colonies. Horrible things were going on in the colonies, but you know, a lot of sugar, untold riches, right? But the earthquake hits the capital city. It was so devastating that some people say that it was the beginning of the end of like this era for the empire, right? Everything went to shit from there.
Arguably the most famous street artist in Portugal right now
Bordalo.
is Bordalo II,
Yeah.
who creates incredible 3D murals of animals by repurposing garbage found.
This is garbage, but this is actual garbage. Like pieces of plastic, you name it. Like, let me show you. Look at that. It combines like it combines like recycled stuff and just garbage, you know, with graffiti. It's pretty nice.
Incredible 3D murals of animals
I like his stuff.
by repurposing garbage found around the city. Okay, so a little while ago, I did a video about the top 12 things not to do in Lisbon, and one of those things were riding in the tuk-tuks. Well, I received a very long comment, maybe one of the longest comments that I've ever had on a video, from a guy named DJ Mario. So as you can tell by this long
Let's see. Hi Dave, been subscribing to your channel, watching your videos for a while now, and I really like most of them. I am sad to say that today, after watching this video, I unsubscribed because I couldn't believe how biased, immediately unsubscribed, how biased this video was. Have you ever even ridden in a tuk-tuk? If not, how can you say that they're all rip-off? Just because some friend told you so? I mean, fair enough. It brings up a good point. If that same friend told you that buying the April 25th bridge was an excellent deal, would you believe him without doing... Oh my god, this guy's going to town, staring him a new one.
Offers to give me a tuk-tuk ride free of charge. Well, we are about to go meet up with Mario right now.
I think this reaction is pretty... It's pretty normal when you go to a place and it has been invaded by tuk-tuks. The general response is usually very much against it. In Lisbon, I gotta say that Lisbon is pretty walkable. And I see the value at the same time. If you don't have a lot of time, but you want to see a lot of places, but maybe if you find a good tuk-tuk, maybe it's a nice way to just go to a lot of places and see a lot of things. Maybe not all tuk-tuks are just rip-offs like, I don't know. Let's see.
Let's go. We're currently out here looking for Mario, but there
Wait,
are
you got him a free ride?
And I don't know which one's him.
Okay. This is the main avenue in the city center, by the way.
Mario? Yeah. How are you? How are you?
How are
Great
you?
to see you, my
Super
friend.
Mario, the
Very nice
tuk-tuk
to meet you, my
driver?
friend.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
First of all,
Okay.
I have to apologize for the slightly harsh comment that I made on your video, but I was really pissed.
No problem. Hey, no problem. We're going to make that up today.
So, I'm going to give you the standard tour that I do give all my clients. If
Alright.
you want to go into the tuk-tuk, I'll give you some security pointers.
Oh, Mario, I'd love to hear your story, man. How did you get into driving tuk-tuk?
How much time do you get? Do you have? So, it's quite an easy story. I was, like most people in Portugal, lose your job after you turn 40. It will be really, really hard for you to get another job.
That's true.
So I was in my 50s,
It's kind
and
You're kind of screwed.
the company I had been working for had gone out of business. So I was at home feeling miserable, and one day my former girlfriend called me up and she said, "Oh, look, there's a friend of mine who just bought a tuk-tuk and she's looking for a guide. And I think that job has got your name written all over it."
And so where are you from?
I'm from Lisbon, born and bred.
By the way, you see these the cobblestone things? They're really cool, but if it rains, even when it doesn't rain, over time it gets kind of polished and it's just a death trap. It looks really cool, but I wouldn't put it all over the city, you know? In historical places it's fine.
Everywhere you look, you
It's also
look
a
down at
bitch
the
to
stone
maintain.
streets, and there are these ornate black and white designs pounded stone by stone into the pathways.
Yeah.
Then you look up, and entire buildings are covered by these beautiful colored tiles called azulejos. But believe it or not,
Yes.
these tiles are not originally Portuguese. The term azulejo has Arabic roots meaning
Moorish.
small polished stone.
Moorish origins.
The art of creating them began on the Iberian Peninsula with the Moors, who
Same in
brought their
Spanish?
mosaic techniques to decorate the walls of their palaces with intricate geometric patterns symbolizing opulence.
The Iberian Peninsula was occupied by the Moors. up until the Reconquista, which is like the reconquering of the Iberian Peninsula by the Christian kings. And so we got a lot of things from their culture as well. We got the ceramic tiles, the art, some architecture. We got many words. Many words that start with al are from Moorish origin, are from, have roots in Arabic.
Since I met up with Super Mario, the tuk-tuk driver on Avenida de Libertad, I decided to have lunch in this area. This is one of the most beautiful streets in Lisbon due to its large trees.
Debatable.
It is arguably the main street of Lisbon and a great place to hide from the sun on a very hot day. The street is lined with bougie designer stores like Louis Vuitton. Not really my style, but there are some great hidden restaurants in the back streets.
Yeah, so arguably, I wouldn't call it the most beautiful street in Lisbon. When Lisbon collapsed due to the earthquake, Marquês de Pombal, or Marquis of Pombal, was tasked with rebuilding the city, right? And so it created, there's this giant roundabout, there's this massive kind of park that overlooks like downtown, and there's this massive avenue that has been part of that project, that rebuilding project. But it's also where you have all the Louis Vuittons, all the, the Pradas, the brands. So it's basically offices and brands. It is what it is. It's better than it was, I'll say that, because the gardens were kind of abandoned. The gardens in the center of the avenue and were kind of deteriorating. It was a bit of a mess. And then a couple of years back, they started like rebuilding. They started bringing back those kiosks, those little cafes that people installed there. So it's kind of better. Still.
Being Agina.
Agina?
Because sardines are currently in season, there couldn't be a dish more Lisboa. It is a nice, off-the-beaten-path, authentic Portuguese restaurant that is frequented by local professionals for lunch. There is a nice outdoor patio and bar, which is great for the warmer weather months.
Typical restaurant?
If you are visiting Lisbon from June to September, this is when the sardinhas are in their prime.
Let's go. Yes. June to September. This is the time. They're nice and fat. They're fantastic. And that's all you need. You just need this little bit of peppers, some potatoes.
And will be freshly brought in daily. The Portuguese have an art to eating these things. Since there are so many bones, you must use the cutlery to remove the meat successfully.
Yeah, it's not that hard. Come on.
I have always loved sardines, and Portugal is probably one of the best places to have sardines in the entire world.
So, dude, I don't know, I never told you this, but I'm also a DJ,
Super Mario, let's go.
I started DJing when I was 16.
Let's go.
I still DJ, actually. During winter time,
Super Mario is the best.
I stopped doing the tuk-tuk tours.
Tuk-tuk stand Super Mario.
Go back to being a DJ because
it has a Mario sticker on it.
Once a DJ, forever a DJ.
Once a DJ, forever a DJ. Oh yeah, Praça do Comércio. This place. This place used to be like a massive car park. Where is he taking him? There's the castle on the hill. Alfama, okay. Alfama is where you have a lot of fado.
You dig a hole.
So how do we feel about tourists knowing about the local restaurants, like the places locals go to avoid tourists? I would say it's the same any country you go. When you go to a place and you go to downtown, there's always a bajillion restaurants that are clearly tailored for the tourists. So many that I don't think that's an issue. There's a couple of places that I used to go where they became extremely popular and they were like simple restaurants with simple food, but really good quality stuff, right? There was like a restaurant I used to go there, and it was just this the sweetest old couple cooking really good fish and meat dishes, simple stuff, but it became super popular in the following years. And honestly, good for them. It's good that that has become popular. I don't see it as an issue. It's an issue when it's like over tourism can have its problems, but at the same time, I'm glad that things like that got popular. You know, that we're sharing our food, sharing our culture. Sometimes you can kind of see that some restaurants are kind of, it's almost fake. It's not quite fake, but it's so tailored for the tourists. They're like, is this really your typical Portuguese restaurant? Not really. But they can coexist, I think. So the very old restaurants, they have a problem, which is the rents used to be super cheap because they're long-time rents, right? The families have been, renting places for generations now, and so the rent was like almost nothing. And that's how the food was so cheap, because usually the rent was almost free by today's standards, and then the people that would work there were pretty much the family. So that's how they could afford to do super cheap stuff and still super good stuff. Nowadays, the story is a bit different, right? There's a lot of places that have been gentrified, that the rents have been increasing. Those places have been disappearing, but they give rise to different places. Still is good, right? Just more expensive. I don't know. It's this. I feel it's the same everywhere. All the places I've visited, like in France, in Spain, in the UK, even in the UK, it's pretty much the same. You go downtown, there's like places that you clearly see were tailored for the tourist, right? But then in the back streets, in the places where there's less traveled places, there'll always be like hidden gems and really nice places as well.
I think that's what we should sell Lisbon like a cultural destination, not just like a place that you can take a
not just a cheap place,
for 20 euros, go there for a weekend and get drunk and do silly things on the streets.
Because that's another problem, right? It's so cheap in comparison. Not anymore. I don't think that's the case anymore with the massive influx of tourists that we've been having. We are now one of the most expensive cities in Europe, in terms of like costs of living in some circumstances. But like, you would see there's a region called Bairro Alto where there's a lot of bars, right? There's a lot of bars, there's a lot of cafes, and people would you'd see a lot of British people would just go there, they'll just get pissed drunk, and that's their idea of fun. That becomes problematic if it's overdone. I prefer not the touristy stuff, but like Lisbon has so much history and so much shit. There's so much stuff that it's like everywhere you look, as this guy is saying, right?
Pretty much what we are.
And you can kind of tell. You look at the restaurant, you kind of tell immediately. Oh, this is a place for tourists. Like,
Lisbon transforms at night.
Bairro Alto.
And the Bairro Alto is
talk
where many
about
of
the
Europe's
devil.
18-year-olds come to get drunk for the first time.
Let's go. Living here must be a pain in the ass.
In the daylight hours, there are some really nice cafes and restaurants in this area.
That's on the other side. That's Alfama.
It wouldn't be a proper Lisbon evening if
Without
we
a
didn't
fado?
visit a fado house for dinner. And we were lucky enough to snag a reservation at O Corrido Casa de Fado. Fado music is the heart of the Portuguese soul.
Is it? Okay, unpopular opinion, but I like it, but I don't think it's the end all, the best cultural thing we have in our music, honestly. For a time, during the dictatorship and everything, people came to resent fado and fado artists like Amalia, one of the most famous singers we ever had. world famous even. And people came to resent her because Fado was like seen as a tool to keep people in their place, in a sense. It represented the oppression. I don't see it that way these days. But also, it's one of those things. If you enjoy it, it's nice to go there and to experience it. But come on, it's not... It's still nice.
One of the oldest folk music styles in the world, its origins are unclear. A popular theory is that it started out at sea as the sad melodic songs were created by homesick sailors and fishermen.
That's always the story
musicians
people
are like jukeboxes.
but
The fado singer comes up and calls the tune, meaning that they've never rehearsed it together, and you will likely never hear it the same way ever again. There is something so powerful hearing fado in a fado house. The small rooms usually have incredibly intimate acoustics. You could hear a feather drop in here. All fado is dominated by the sentiment known as saudade, a word that cannot be precisely defined in English, but is roughly translated to a deep yearning.
yeah, it's longing for something. It's not just... I don't know. Saudade is pretty straightforward, I would say. It's just you miss something. It's you yearn for something that... People say it's not a... Missing is not is not enough as a translation. Tenho saudades of something. You miss something. You use it in that sense, right? There's this fucking mysticism around the word. I don't know. It's like Danish people in hygge. It just means cozy. Like that's it. Exactly. That's it. So that means yearning deeply for something. Like you miss something. You get it. You get the vibe. Right? I get the vibe. But there's also other kinds of fathers. It's not just, oh, my life is shit. Oh, I yearn for my husband is dead. Or, you know. There's also happy fathers. It's not just sadness.
And a fado performance is not successful if an audience is not moved to tears. Fado traditionally is not to be applauded.
What an exaggeration. Espresso as well at the end of the meal.
Over the past 5 years, Lisbon has become one of the most desirable locations for tech startups in the world.
Yeah, because
it
it's
is home
cheap.
to many co-work spaces and tech incubators.
Yeah, but it's not because of that. It's because we're cheap. Unfortunately. So don't get... It's because we're cheap. It's because the quality of life is really, really good. And it's because the infrastructure is really, really good. Like we have best internet. I've been to a lot of places. We have the best internet, the best weather, the best fucking food. And then we're cheap. We're really cheap. Yeah, it's safe. The safest place you can ever be in Europe. Honestly. Super safe. Super good food. Super good weather. Super good infrastructure. What's not to love? And the labor is really, really, really cheap. That's why.
In terms of the startup world.
And education is really good as well. In my honest opinion.
And all the tech that you hear about, Portugal is becoming the center for people. I think it's thriving, right? Because it's also a small community. It's not like Silicon Valley, San Francisco, or London, where it's just too big, right? Like you get lost in the sprawl of all these people doing all these projects. Here, you kind of are in the community. For example, for me, I'm in financial technology.
Of course,
and
you
I
are.
kind of know the community. I know what people are working on. I know the events that are going on. I know how to talk to you, how to find the investors here.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. They come to work in Portugal, but they get paid from abroad. So, you know, and they got all kinds of tax breaks, and we're returning to that. There's this new scheme that they're thinking about implementing, about a new 10-year tax break for people from abroad. And I'm like, why don't I get a 10-year tax break as a Portuguese, right? What the hell?
Side is the gentrification. The downside is that as it is a beautiful city and with a nice weather, good food, all
There we
the
go.
pros that Lisbon and Portugal have, lots and lots of people have been falling in love with Lisbon and Portugal and have been buying property here. And lots of people want to come here on vacation, and
the locals can no longer afford it. You can end
people
with that one.
own buildings and they used to have them rented. They just evicted lots of people that had been living in the old neighborhoods like Alfama and Moraria for all their lives, because the owners wanted to make Airbnbs on those buildings because they
More money.
make a lot more money.
Yeah.
So basically, we lost a lot
It's
of
sad,
population.
really.
Lisbon used to have 1 million inhabitants, and now it says barely 800,000.
Before we left before we came to London, it was already becoming a problem, especially for like when you go to study. We have a lot of universities, but like Lisbon is a pretty important hub with many important universities. And so, how do you send your kid to study in Lisbon if you can't afford rent, right? Universities have like special places for students, like rooms and stuff, but not enough. Usually you have to be considered to have like special social needs, right? You don't have enough money to live there, so they get you residence there, but like it's not enough.
Renting in Lisbon is now the third most expensive European
Holy
city
shit.
after Amsterdam and Reykjavik. However, the average salaries and income in
same.
these countries are almost 4 times higher than they are in Portugal.
Yeah, in Portugal they didn't budge.
I have
Look, we got a golden gate as well. Ours is prettier, in my opinion. April
This bridge
25th.
may look familiar to you. Surprisingly, the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco actually came 30 years before. And confusingly, the bridge was built by the same consortium that built the Bay Bridge in San Francisco, not the Golden Gate.
Yeah.
The bridge was originally named the Salazar Bridge, the leader of the longest living
Fucking dictator, by the way. That's why we changed the name.
authoritarian regime in Europe. So, why did they rename it the 25th of April Bridge? Well, on this day in 1974, one of the most important things in Portuguese history happened here in Lisbon.
So, I remember that day, that the April 25th, 1974 day, like as if it was yesterday. I was not even 12 yet. And I remember waking up in the morning with the phone ringing. I used to go to school with a friend of mine. That his mother would drive us there, and his father was a major in the Portuguese army. And so the phone rings, and I answer the phone, and it's his mother saying, "You're not going to school today. Stay at home, stay away from windows. There's a revolution going on." And I couldn't understand what the hell was a revolution. So I called my mother, and when my mother started talking to the lady, I remember my mother's face turning white. And then she told me, "Stay away from the windows," and we put on the radio, and there was like nothing but those military marches going on, and from time to time there would be this gentleman reading a message from the armed forces movement, the revolutionary forces, telling people that they should stay at home and that they were trying to give people a better future, and so on and so on.
By the way, no bullets whatsoever. Zero bullets. This revolution, the people would shove carnation flowers into the rifles, and that's why we call it like the Carnation Revolution, right? Or revolution of the carnation flowers.
Military came into the streets with carnation flowers
Let's
in their
go.
guns, sending a powerful message to the people of Lisbon, ending the longest authoritarian dictatorship ever in Europe. The Tower of Belém is the gateway to Lisbon, located at the mouth of the Tejo River. It was built as a fort to protect any intruders, and it was also the embarkation and disembarkation for the Portuguese explorers. Here you can wait in a
let's
long
go.
line to try the original
Pastéis de
recipe
Belém.
for the famous pastel de nata.
They're actually pastéis de Belém, right? Which are technically pastéis de nata, but they're kind of different. My favorite pastel de nata is not actually the pastel de Belém, even though pastel de Belém is like super popular and like has massive tourist lines every single day, right? And it's a very well kept secret. The recipe, it's not my favorite.
As the sun begins to set, I advise you to get to a miradouro or a viewpoint as soon as you possibly can. This is exactly what Mario and I did while enjoying a nice beer. At the end of the tour, Mario quoted Casablanca and said, "I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship," and I couldn't agree more. Lisbon has a way of getting into your bones, kind of like
There's
the
a lot of
cold in a
miradores,
Portuguese
right? A lot
house
of
in the
lookout
winter.
points.
I hope that Lisbon doesn't change too much because I like her.
I think I have pretty much sure I have a photograph in almost all the lookout spots in Lisbon. I have this exact photo as well. I've taken this exact photo right here, this view. But it's a hilly city, and that's Martim Muniz, I believe, right down there. Down there, you see that square building right down there, and there's like a plaza situation. I think that's Martim Muniz, if I'm not mistaken.
Just the way she is. If you come to visit Lisbon,
It is. Yes.
please leave it better than you found it.
The B-roll is really good. He did a really good job there. Right? I'll put this on YouTube, and then I'll put all the links and everything so you guys can look at the original video and everything. Alright? In the description. Based Mario, Super Mario, DJ,
Ever since I had
entrepreneur,
heard of Lisbon,
DJ,
I wanted
tuk-tuk
to come
driver.
to this restaurant.
Oh, Ramiro, let's go.
Featured on Anthony Bourdain's No
Rip
Reservation.
my wallet,
this
though.
Is Ramiro. This is my
Seafood.
favorite type of restaurant in Lisbon, a no-frills working-class seafood restaurant. If the waiter seems like he's upset with you, he probably is, and if he's not, you're in the wrong restaurant. This is where you can try
That's
Portugal's
pretty
most
accurate.
iconic seafood like percebes, which is goose barnacles,
Percebes.
tiger shrimp the size of your head, which I confuse with a lobster, and incredible lobsters so fresh, they bring them to you alive to show you before they cook them.
Yeah. There's a tank usually there as well.
And now I see why this was one of Anthony Bourdain's favorite restaurants while visiting Lisbon. The restaurant has gained so much hype over the past decade that they had to buy the restaurant next door just to turn into
Really?
a waiting room like the DMV. It's easy to see why Lisbon has become one of my favorite cities in the entire world. If you want to see more content about Portugal,
we'll throw you
make
to the
sure
river
hit
if
the
you
like
don't.
and subscribe button.
Right.
This is some guy named Dave in Portugal, and we'll see you next time.
All right. That was Dave in Portugal. What did we think? It was a good one, right? Hello? Did you like the video? If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, if you have the bell, press the bell.
Otherwise, you know, you don't get the juicy stuff next time. Is this how you do it? What do you mean, no? Oh, also, love your face. Bye. Bye. Click the things.